I've been talking to a lot of people over the last several months, and I hear people saying AI is supposed to be making everything faster, and it is. I can see lots of things happening a lot faster. But why aren't things feeling better? It's not this utopia that we're living in. There's a lot of challenges here. Things don't really feel great about it. And so what it comes down to is that we've got a bunch of AI tools that are genuinely accelerating output. But there are a ton of product managers that are reporting that planning is just as painful, adoption is flat in larger organizations, and work just feels worse somehow. So is the bottleneck no longer really speed? So there's this weird little contradiction sitting in the middle of product work right now. AI adoption is blowing up, but big org roadmap planning still hurts. Development may be moving faster in a lot of ways, but that's creating its own fallout and its own challenges. And teams are struggling to adopt all the right tools meaningfully and keep using them and actually work into new ways of working as opposed to a bunch of experiments. So the faster output is making a lot of systems look more productive than they are when they're really broken. Anyway, so today we've got a pretty good group of folks. First of all, as I said, we have our co-host here today. Every network has a router and a cheerleader, and she's ours. It's Jackie Flake. She is one of the co-founders of Option One Partners and has been a product management pro for a huge chunk of her career, and now she helps product managers around the world find the right opportunities as part of Option One Partners, and helps companies find great opportunities as well, great product managers as well. The next guy is helping founders become their own middle management. It's John Field. He is an AI operations expert and the head of product at Career Whisperer. Up next, minimal process, maximum scar tissue, the troubadour of product management training, Steve Johnson from Product Growth Leaders. And next up, AI hypes adult supervision. Maybe. Misha Sulpovar, he's the chief AI officer at Foley and founder of Prompt Owl as well. And do we have Alison in here? We've got Alison as well. Alison is part product manager, part library bouncer. Alison Herbert is a senior product manager and head librarian at Product Coffee. Welcome. Okay, so let's jump into today's discussion. Like I said, I actually gave our panelists a big list of things that they could read and check out and comment on if they wanted to, but it's really more the situational problem that we talked about. John, you have lived both in engineering and product, and you've seen roadmaps become theater, and you've seen when they stop helping teams decide what to do and become just a big mess. So if AI is making artifacts faster, why do we keep seeing the thinking getting thinner?
That's a great question. So I think that people are optimizing around the old bottlenecks that they used to have 10 years ago when it came to AI, right? And so product managers are going, oh, you know what? I can synthesize some personas and have what looks like to be some synthesized competitive intel pulled together really quickly. I can create this spec doc that looks great, that's 20 pages and it has every detail that I'd hoped I would have been able to have in there earlier. And then I can hand it off to engineering, at which point engineering says, oh, I'm not reading this thing. Let me get my AI to take a look at it and understand what the product manager is actually saying and how I can go forward. And so as I have been talking to people, and it seems to scale up depending on the size of the organization, you're ending in this interesting area where AI is talking to AI. And it's my AI that's generating from things from my perspective, that is talking to your AI, that is looking at things from your perspective. And it's one where it's like we're missing each other in the middle. And so when I am looking at AI productivity and how that's being measured, I'm very much thinking about it from the standpoint of, are you driving the business metrics up? Are you seeing top of the funnel go up? Are you seeing closed customers? Are you seeing, churn rate go down? All of those kinds of things. And if you're not actually seeing the outcomes change, then you're probably optimizing around the wrong model.
And we see a lot of that. Steve, you get your choice. You have a rant or do you want a prompt? I'm prompt engineering Steve.
There we go. Well, let's just turn on the rant here. I'm seeing the same stuff that we saw when we adopted Agile. It's like, let's go fast. And I've spent really the last, I'd say 20 years trying to convince, and this is crazy talk, trying to convince product managers to talk to customers and also talk to developers, and as well as marketing and sales. And I continue to be shocked to learn that people are actually producing PRDs, which in fact are not requirements documents. They are feature specifications.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent the last week trying to build my own app using Base 44 with help from ChatGPT, and I desperately need a UX person. So it seems to me that product managers are playing around with these tools. We haven't found the right set of tools yet, but I guess my biggest rant is, what is the role of product management? It's not to be a programmer. It's not to be a UX designer. It's the one who prioritizes what business problems we're going to solve. So one more rantette. Even back in the days of Agile, we were shifting away from writing these enormous documents and taking 12 months, 15 months, 18 months to build something. And the problem being we didn't do any learning along the way, although sales and executives were able to make up more things during that time frame. And so in one of my teams back in the day, I said, we're going to release every 90 days. Whatever's working is going to be released. And pretty soon we found that we were going faster than the sales and the marketing teams, the go-to-market teams, and the customers. The customers are saying it's coming at us too fast. And I think that's really the same thing that's happening to us now, is we're able to do things quickly. But as some of you have heard me say more than once, with today's tools, we can build the wrong thing faster than ever.
And if I may jump in here, Steve, I love that you brought up Agile, because I've done a lot of training with clients in that space over the years. And the same core goal that we experienced when we were trying to adopt Agile is, can we create a shared understanding? And we're still having that challenge in this new era of technology. And it's just such an interesting evolution to watch, because we still have the same goal, still trying to achieve the same thing, but yet just with different tool sets.
Yep, they've expanded massively. Misha, you've been sitting in
Yeah,
the middle of this mess and speaking about it since really broadly, since the great consumer invasion of AI when ChatGPT made its public debut. And before that,
yeah.
but you've been talking a lot. So what do you see? Why are we experiencing this bifurcation of what seems like high productivity and still a hot mess?
Yeah, I think we've got the ingredients around the answer to that with everything that's been said so far. So John spoke to this idea of AIs talking to AIs. I see so much of that. Jackie talked about the missing piece has always been shared context and communication. Steve talked about Agile and the convergence of that. A couple of things that I'm seeing is that when you start to think about the supply of software outstripping the demand, which is where we're at today, something we've been talking about that is inevitable for many years, but we're finally here. The way I always thought about Scrum as sort of agile on training wheels a little bit. And if you could wave a magic wand, what you'd want to think about your organization as a continuous value creation flow. Knowledge machinery that moves idea to cash, and where you can optimize across that value creation pipeline. And that comes back to being able to measure what the outcomes of a transformation look like. In order to do that, you need shared understanding, and you need to orchestrate that shared understanding. So there's pieces of the stack that are missing. The first is context layers that can carry across agents, that can carry across people. And you can't have context layers unless you have governance around those context layers. And so whatever pathology you have in the organization gets amplified is absolutely true. And there's, in every organization, decisions and value creation is made both formally and informally. And from where I sit, really effective ROI capture, at least the cases that have been documented, have involved changing the way work gets done, not just automating the work that exists. And a lot of that has to do with being able to capture the systems of value creation, create the telemetry to measure them, and envision at its core how humans are going to manage context and enable agents to fulfill that context. That also applies to product management, increasingly so, because I think this is an area where product management, customer service, and operations are three areas where we see the most activity around agentic implementation. I say it's a little bit on sales and marketing, but more from the outside in. It's not enough to pull out the steam engine in the middle of a 5-story garment factory and replace it with a motor that does the same thing. You have to flatten the factory and change the entire workflow of how an organization gets done for you to start to realize that value in a true AI native sense. And I mean that $1 to $2 million per employee value creation range that we're seeing for AI native startups.
Thank you.
I want to add just a note to that. Just as a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in AI reminds me of Agile, what Misha just said reminds me of web adoption. The first websites were brochures that were static, and it took us years to figure out what's the right thing to do with websites. And I think we're going to Misha's point, I think we're going to see the same thing happen as we move forward with AI. It's going to take a while to figure out which part of this is cool. Like, it wasn't really the internet that was cool. It was the World Wide Web that was cool, that the internet made possible. And I think we're still looking for that killer app.
And Latha has put some interesting questions in the chat. She says, when agentic AI is constantly trying to solve the problems that Misha described and summarized, where do we see this building the future of product management?
That's a great question. I know I saw 2 articles recently, and I'm going to jump over to Alison here in just a second. But Latha, Teresa Torres, Continuous Discovery Habits fame, recently announced that she has built an agentic suite of product management applications. She kind of went into coding mode and jumped back into coding and delivered some software. And she's got it available out there that is trying to harness some of these technologies to streamline the product management job. And similarly, who else was it? There was someone else that I was speaking to the other day. Well, I was speaking to Christian Crumlish just yesterday, as a matter of fact, who is building an application called Piper Morgan, or an agent called Piper Morgan, and he's been chronicling that on LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, Christian's going to be our guest here on June 17th, so mark your calendar for that. But he's going to be talking about his journey as a product manager, building an agentic product manager to work with him, and how that has changed the way he thinks about lots of parts of the work that he does and approaches it. So I think, to your point, to Steve's earlier point, the web was really interesting at first, but it didn't get super interesting until we figured out how to really harness it. And that work is happening right now. Misha's at the forefront of that work. John is at the forefront of that work, specifically some of the folks on this call right now. And so the answer isn't clear yet, but we're seeking the answers. And I think one of the best things that you can do is jump in with a group of people who are thinking that way. If you're here in Atlanta, there's an AI collective where people are getting together on a regular basis and talking about what they're doing, sharing what they're doing. One of our members, April Dawn, is really interested in what people are doing and collecting more stories to kind of help share that. So there's a lot of things that are going on to help us move to what's the real transformation that we can actually execute on. Sorry, I went way long on responding to that, but wanted to jump into it. Alison, let's get back to the thread here. And you're a very empathetic person, and at the same time, you thrive. You describe yourself as someone who thrives on recalculating. When the work is speeding up and not feeling better, what helps a team regain their shared understanding of, instead of just generating more update stocks and meetings and artifacts?
Yeah, you didn't deviate too far. In fact, I was just thinking I'm going to do a cartwheel after this because there couldn't be any more perfect lineup. So great job, everybody on the panel this morning. We have built the pinnacle here. I'm going to drop this in the chat. I know this was one of the many articles that kind of led this prompt to discussion, but John Cutler came through with a lovely visual. And so I'm going to just ask folks to take a look at that visual that I've posted in the chat, because I think it's about taking a look at that document. Where are you on that list? Where are you finding yourself and your team on that list? And then saying, okay, what did I do here? How am I thinking about my work? How am I thinking about our team's work? There we go. Yeah. A good messy. I think I'm here. Wait a minute. Just kidding. This happened. And right, these off ramps that we're seeing, I've seen this conversation happen frequently in teams and thinking through, this is just hype. I'm not gonna do anything just yet, or I'll wait for the dust to settle, things of that nature. When I think about when the team has tried to make sense of this, it is putting people in a room and externalizing what's represented here. Where are we not connected? Where are we connected? Putting that shared understanding together to say, what do we need to be successful here? I don't want to nod back to Agile, but we've got to do this together. Doing it alone is going to cause confusion and take us longer. Doing it divided is going to take us longer and divide us. And really trying to put the scary things and say the hard things out loud is going to give us the greatest chance to understand this together. You were saying about the conversation with Christian. Absolutely. We are figuring it out together. There are brilliant minds in this space that are just building and they're just doing. Misha, I know you're out there just building and just doing and learning as you go. And so I think about talking about, hey, I learned this and then I had to undo it and hit delete a bunch or, burn this down and start over again because, right, I'm making a mental model of this space. I'm making a mental model of how I fit in this space. And I think that's what we need to encourage our teams to be doing, especially in this time of great change and great learning opportunity.
Yeah, it's worth bringing up that part of the stress is I know a lot of people feel behind all the time.
Yep.
It's very tempting to feel behind. That is, in my opinion, that's a symptom of having the wrong mental model and the wrong abstraction layer.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel mentally behind, you have to zoom out and think about the systems in which work gets done.
Yep.
Once you stop feeling behind on this, and it's not about the tech and it's not about using the tools, once you stop feeling behind, you're at the right level of abstraction to start to apply value thinking. How do I compete in a market that's changing? How do I create value for my customers? Those fundamental product muscles that we've all been aching to exercise for decades but never could because we've been busy writing requirement documents and all of that. But the first step is to make sure you're operating at the right layer of abstraction, because that is fundamentally changing the way that work gets done. It's very hard for me just to conceive of product managers that write requirements and don't touch code, that don't create prototypes, that are not thinking about value systems, are not thinking about telemetry, are not thinking about A/B testing and experimentation and how to structure questions. I don't know if that role exists in 5 years.
Well, I also don't know that I feel the same way about product managers spending all of their time with development, having never met a customer. So where's your value add, right? If all you're doing is reading aloud to the developers from Jira, then yeah, you're
Hope
going
not.
to totally get replaced.
Yeah. That's
I
a
want
very, very true point. It's the human piece there that right is where we need to be thinking about where we're spending our time and balancing that, right? Yes, I should not be writing, well, to what level we should be writing Jira tickets or include and writing PRDs at this point in the stage, right? They are things that help, but they are not the things that drive our work.
And I have found that developers more want context rather than more detail. And I think we've, as an industry, gotten into a mode of, let me tell you the problem, which is I want this feature. And, I've been teaching for 30 years. Developers need to understand the problem because they've got a better idea on how to solve it than you do, assuming that we have developers and not just coders.
And there is that interplay between the business and the technology side, because especially we were talking about outcome focused a moment ago as well, because there is that translation layer that the better developer, your development team understands the problem, the better they can help build, design and build technology that will solve the problem, there's still that connecting to the customer outcome layer as well that takes lots of customer contact and customer focus and customer conversations. Hey, where can I learn more about that, Steve? So that's a key part of what you're talking about. I think is it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that the other thing about having great engineering partners is being able to describe the problem where you would say, here's the customer problem. However, here's marketing's problem right now. Here's sales's problem. Here's the executive's problem, so that they're seeing the whole context where it's like, it's not just about, let me just present what I have heard from customers, even though that's extremely important, is that if you just build the feature based on what you're hearing from customers in a number of organizations, especially of any size and scale, you're still going to have unresolved problems because you can't assume that everybody else that's in the business views the customer and the problems the same way.
Yep.
And so I think that's one of the things of being
Preach.
able to say, okay, we definitely have to solve the customer problems, but we cannot be oblivious to how these other big stakeholders look at the same thing.
Yeah,
And a good development partner will absolutely lean into that conversation. A bad development partner will say, it's just about the customer. Those other people don't matter.
Distribution is now so much more important than building. It's not even close. And as central context systems and knowledge architecture become codified and they're active, central context systems, knowledge architectures is the new data strategy, right? So as that becomes codified, it's not just knowing what all these stakeholders need, but actually creating the artifacts and the processes to manage those artifacts that your agent swarms can feed off of. That's again the right level of abstraction.
And I want to go back to one thing that Allison was talking about. And it was in your question, Jason, as well, which is, well, does it feel better? I thought it was going to feel better. I thought that I was going to feel better on the other side of this. And for anybody that's experiencing that in product right now, right? Because I left the PE world last year, started my own business, really focused on helping small businesses, medium-sized businesses get that product market fit and be able to grow from a cash flow basis with a small team. I have pivoted my delivery mechanism 3 times in 6 months. Anthropic was on an absolute tear in Q1, right? And I am watching the landscape shift from under me over and over again. And so I think that for folks who tied their identity to, I am going to build this skill, I'm going to take my time doing it, I am going to, I am what I do, not I am the unique perspective I bring and my unique skills and all of those kinds of things. I think they're going to find themselves increasingly in areas of discomfort because whatever you are anchoring yourself to from a AI perspective of AI can help me do X today, it will be different tomorrow. And it will be better, but it will also probably lead you astray in new ways, where right now it leads you astray in one way, it will lead you astray in new ways tomorrow. So being able to constantly evolve and understand that this is the kind of, tectonic shifts that are going on under us right now, and they've never been coming faster, that anybody that anchors themselves too hard to what's going on today is probably going to find themselves stressed tomorrow.
It's a
Yes,
great
That's
and
really
call out,
true,
John.
John.
I think
I was
it
talking
doesn't
to
feel
somebody.
good.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Allison. It doesn't feel
Oh,
better
God,
today
okay.
because as humans, our brains are wired to want to know what's coming and know what's next. And in this new era, there is so much unknown and it's changing so rapidly that we can't possibly wrap our minds around it. So we always feel like we could be doing more. Always could be doing more. And that's just inevitable pressure we're putting on ourselves because we want to succeed and that we're getting from leadership and organizationally. And frankly, it's exposing a lot of organizational friction and challenges and things that it wouldn't have otherwise.
It's true, and we're seeing it. Steve,
Dysfunction.
I think you've got another way in here.
Just for what it's worth, in college, I took a lot of computer science classes, and one of the classes I took was 10 languages in 10 weeks.
Whoa.
And it was super cool And the professor's point was, sure, you can learn language X, but by the time you graduate, that's going to be gone and you're going to need to learn another language. And I'm seeing the same thing now with AI. It's like, I'm all about ChatGPT, and Charlie knows me really well and he writes in my voice and I'm digging that. And now everybody's saying I need to go over to Claude, and I'm like, but I have this friend now, right? But, I learned Lisp and Algol and assembler and all this stuff. And of course, nobody's touched any of that stuff in years.
Yep.
And we're going to do the same thing with AI.
That's a great point. We are at the top of the hour, so I want to thank our panelists. And I want to carry this conversation over just a little bit, but I know a couple of you have to run to some other meetings, so I really want to thank everybody. I want to thank John, Misha, Steve, and Allison, and of course, Jackie here in the studio with me for jumping in to kind of kickstart the conversation on this today. I thank you all for being here, and please stick around. We got a lot more to cover. We're going to get into our main session in a moment, but there's a lot of conversation going on in the chat as well. So I want to give the folks who are here in Zoom with us a chance. If you'd like to weigh in or pop a question to whoever is able to stick around, just throw up your virtual hand in the Zoom panel. I would love to take an opportunity to introduce you to our community and let you ask a question or give your insight and observation. Feel free to do that. And while we're doing that, I want to also give a shout out to our newest premium member. Sarah Owen is with us here today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the community, Sarah, and supporting us. We're so glad to have you. Looking forward to getting to know you better. Welcome. Let's see here. Okay, no hands popping up. Nobody's dying to weigh in, so we will go on to our main topic today. Let's before we do that though, I want to take a quick moment, excuse me, and give a shout out and thanks to all of our partners. Today's session, if you're here in the Zoom with us and you're not a premium member, your attendance here is sponsored by Prize Picks. We are thrilled to have you here. And Prize Picks is an amazing company. They are building an amazing team here in Atlanta as they're continuing to grow with one of the fastest growing consumer entertainment, sports entertainment apps in history and companies in history. We're thrilled to have them as a sponsor. They do that to support our community and help connect with great product people across the country, across the world, and to recruit some of them here in Atlanta. So we are thrilled to have you here. And thanks to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. Check out all of our sponsors in the chat. Click the links, learn about them so that you can introduce them to your colleagues and friends or someone in your company if you have an opportunity to do so. And that's how you thank them for sponsoring and making this show possible. All right? Okay. Next week, we have a really fun session coming up, and we're putting together a really cool panel, including Harry Gopal, who is a venture capitalist. He works for Engage Ventures here in Atlanta. He was a product manager for Cox Communications, moved into the VC world, so he sees a lot of transition from that product mindset into founder mode, or vice versa, from founder into product mindset, and has some really great observations on the foundation that product management lays. If you're choosing to take an entrepreneurial path in your career, Harry's got some great insights and some great experiences. We've also got quite a few other founders, product managers who have gone into founder mode and then back into product management. They'll talk about that journey, what it feels like, what it looks like, and how each leg of that journey equip them for success in the next leg. So it's going to be a really fun session, a really career focused. Love to have you here. Love to have you back here for that one. Okay. If this is your first time at Product Coffee, one of the things that we do is we take notes as a group. And those notes are in a Google Doc, so you can star it and save it in your own Google Drive and go back to it whenever you want. Just go to productcoffee.com/notes. Instead of just taking notes for yourself, we'd love you to contribute in that community document and be a part of that. If you do so, drop your LinkedIn profile at the bottom. And that way we can thank you for helping us out with keeping notes for today. A lot easier than trying to host and chat and take notes all as one person. So it takes a team. And one thing I did fail to call out is I want to switch back over real quick. I want to put the camera on Alison Herbert for just another moment, our librarian, to talk about book club and what we're doing on Friday.
Hey, good morning. So thanks again, Jason, for that shout out. So we are reading, and you can put the camera back on. Oh, or did he jump? No. Is he here? He's here.
I'm
Steve.
here.
There he is. We are reading Customer Conversations by our very own Steve Johnson. We had our first conversation almost 2 weeks ago now, and really enjoying the conversation around what it means to have a customer conversation, when and where not to, who's having them, who's not having them, and what we can do to get the most value out of those conversations. So we'll have another discussion this Friday at 2. If you go to productcoffee.com/book club, you can sign up and get an invite to the series. You do not have to read to come to book club, but we'd love it if you did, and we look forward to seeing you all on Friday.
Excellent. Steve, we need to get you to do an Audible version and have R.C. Bray read it. He's the Columbus Day reader.
Gotcha.
All right.
Yeah, I actually challenged my friend Dutch, who did my Turn Ideas into Product. He's a really good reader. He said, Steve, you should really read it. And I can't read my own writing without editing it in my head. So anyway, Dutch did a really good job of the Audible version, and I'm hoping he'll do the same.
Awesome.
For customer conversations.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Very cool. Thank you. And then on June 3rd, we're going to have David Dean as a guest talking about his new book, which will be our next book club read. So got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So stay with us. If you want to keep up to date with all that's going on with Product Coffee, make sure you go over to productcoffee.com, sign up as a subscriber, or even better, as an insider or a premium member. And if you're an insider or a premium member, you get lots of perks and get in the back room to join us in Slack, and where we have a lot of other fun conversations and a lot of things going on. All right, so moving right along, let's get started with today's session. And today, I was doing some research around a lot of the topics around that we might want to cover here in Product Coffee. And one of the things that I noticed in our last several discussions was people talking about some of the changes to the product management fundamentals. And prioritization is a big thing that we talk about from a product management perspective all the time, but it has taken a back seat to AI in discussion lately. And there's a lot of conversations about, well, can AI be doing your prioritization for you? I saw a comment in chat earlier that was kind of touching on that concept as well. I think it came from Sarah actually. When do our product management agents start just working with our engineering agents? And is the connection of that in my mind was, does prioritization become more automated? Where's the human value in that? We're going to talk about that a little bit today. So let me jump into it. Now, today's session, once again, I want to remind everybody, Product Coffee is not a webinar. If you're here, this is a meetup. This is a community meetup. So we want you to jump in and be a part of the conversation. I have got 8 slides that are going to kind of be a backdrop to this conversation. But what we're really going to do is we're going to talk about some of how the world is changing in product management, specifically with regard to prioritization. What's different, what's the same, and how to make sure that you're not losing focus on the important things that you do in your professional role. So we're going to be talking about the current view on prioritization. And part of the impetus for this conversation in the first place, for this session, was I was at a meetup. I guess it was in March. It's been a couple months ago. And the speaker was John Bell, who is the head of product at a company called Obvious. You might have known their previous name, Flatfile. And John was talking about how they have evolved their product development and their process to, at the time, they were shipping hundreds of PRs a day, and were on track to be shipping 1,000 PRs a day. Since then, he's been very public about, we're shipping 1,000 PRs a day at Obvious. And there's certainly a conversation about whether that's a good idea or not, or what kind of PRs are we talking about. There's certainly part of that conversation is relevant, but more importantly, just the fact that with agentic coding solutions, we can do things today that even a year ago were unimaginable. 10 years ago, shipping 1,000 PRs a day wasn't even a concept that would cross anybody. By the way, this is with a team of 10 engineers. That was a concept that no one would even have considered thinking about, except maybe some of the folks at OpenAI or Anthropic. But then last year, it still wouldn't even have amounted to a stretch goal. But today, it's an everyday thing for some leading companies. So when you're shipping at that pace, how does that impact as a product manager or as a product leader or as a product thinker, no matter what your position is in your product management role, how does that impact how you prioritize and decide what to do next? There's certainly a subset of things that you can turn to automation that are very deterministic in how things ought to be prioritized. But there's also a lot of judgment that goes into prioritization that is not as simple as that. And at that scale, do product managers risk becoming a real bottleneck to productivity if they don't evolve their thinking? So we wanted to talk about that today. Specifically, we had some constraints and some ways of thinking in the olden times 2 years ago that we had more good ideas than we had engineers who could actually build them. There was just not enough engineering capacity to do everything that we needed to do.